We are a public safety department, so we are also a police, fire, and EMS, which is not too unfamiliar with people in Michigan, but somewhat unusual. When I became chief in 2008, June of 2008, and when I got there, on the table, as I describe it, was the suggestion or request to conduct a racial profiling study. And so I felt that was a very reasonable question to ask, a very reasonable request. And so we sought about a way to answer that question in a very responsible way that was fair not only to the department, but fair to the community. And so through some research and some conversations with other chiefs that had went through a similar exercise, we landed on a consultant, Lambert Consulting out of Pennsylvania, that would come in and do a data analysis of our traffic stops and our post-stop activity. So once we went through a year of data collection and analysis, and I'll be brief, essentially it came out we had significant disparate impact based on our traffic stops throughout the city. And in addition, the most significant data set that sticks out to me, which really mirrors a lot of other data sets in the country that have gone through this, is we asked more African Americans to search their vehicles, but got less contraband, if you will. We're talking about consent searching, not search incident to arrest, not search incident to tow or anything like that. That's just asking for consent to search. We asked less Caucasians, but got more contraband, I guess, if you will, whether it be guns, narcotics, things of that nature. Pretty telling, pretty significant data sets that we had to acknowledge, and we had to do something about. And I'm very proud of our community because, you know, I can tell you, sitting there getting those initial results before we conveyed them to the stakeholders, you worry about the reaction of the community. And I can tell you, at least, and these are my words, the community said two things. One, thank you for telling the truth as we know it, or as we felt for a very long time. And two, how can we help? And that was extremely powerful for me as the chief, and gave, I believe, our organization some confidence that we're going to get through this. Because we don't have a choice, right? I mean, we have a law enforcement agency that serves the community. The community is not going away. Law enforcement's not going away. So how do we move forward in the best way possible to address the concerns and to maintain the community trust that's so critically important to sustaining a viable community? So, one, I think we acknowledged the problem. I think that we stood up, we took a very close look at ourselves in a responsible way that was supportable by data. Their methodology was accepted by the federal courts, so there was a lot of confidence that I had in our consultant. So there was many recommendations that came out of that. And one was, we had to really look at ourselves. How are we deploying our officers, and how is that yielding the results that we had? And I think that many times in law enforcement, and I think most of the chiefs that have been around long enough would agree, we tend to measure our success in law enforcement with statistics. How many arrests did we make? How many citations did we write? What was our crime rate? And so, if you really asked yourself, honestly, for me, I guess, is that I've never had anybody in the community call me and ask me any of those questions. Not a single person. The only one that will ask me is maybe once a year, the media would call, you know, at January or February, what was your crime rate last year and how did you guys look and things of that nature, so they would do a story. But no one from the community would ever ask those questions. They would never ask it. They don't care. What they care about is the relationship that they have with the department, and specifically the patrol officers that are in those neighborhoods every single day. So we needed to quit measuring our success by those statistics and rewarding those officers that I wrote the most tickets, I made the most arrests, things of that nature. Now don't mistake what I'm saying that we don't want to arrest them, because there are folks, that is our task, that are out there causing harm to communities, and we have to address that. So don't mistake what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we need to be smarter about that. Just generating data or generating tickets or generating arrests really had a lot of collateral damage. And so we wanted to be much more laser focused on those individuals that are causing harm in our community, and not like a shotgun with birdshot. Just infiltrating communities with numerous officers, stopping everyone that we can stop, searching their cars and tossing their pockets and things of that nature. That's what we felt we should be doing. And historically, go back to the crack cocaine days, that's what people asked for us to do because of those dynamics that were happening in urban America. Now we're learning more, and so we changed our internal reward system so officers knew that community engagement and service was the priority, not just tickets and not just arrests, not just being a warrior cop, but being someone that's delivering service, and that's our product. So we were changing the measurables that we have for our officers. So if you want to get promoted, you want to go to that specialty unit, or whatever the case may be, that's the lens in which we're viewing you as an employee, is your ability to engage the community, do good police work, do quality police work, have a service mentality, and that's the lens in which we view you, not from a purely statistical standpoint. If my officers could have fired me, they probably would have. I think they felt that I threw them under the bus. I think they felt that people were pointing their finger at them and calling them racists. They felt misguided. They felt we set them up. They're like, we were just doing what you told us to do. And I said, you're absolutely right. So, in no disrespect to, let's say, all the circumstances in Ferguson, but what I can tell you is, because that study came out about almost 1 year prior to the events in Ferguson. And I think many people in our industry are using Ferguson as kind of the demarcation line. That kind of launched us down this path. But once that happened, in the conversations that were coming out of Ferguson, the data sets that were coming out of Ferguson, which mirrored ours, that is where I think our department, many, not all, I'm not going to sit here and sell you a bill of goods that isn't there, but they step back and paid attention and go, wow, now I see why we're doing what we're doing.
Yank you out of here.
Okay, you gonna yank me out of my car?
Get out.
Okay, all right.
25.
Let's do this.
Yeah, we're going to.
Yeah, don't touch me.
Get out of the car.
Don't touch me. I'm not under arrest. You don't have the right to take
You
me out
are
of my
under
car.
arrest.
I'm under arrest for what?
25.
For what?
7 County FM 1098. Just
For
over
what?
290. Send me another unit. Get out of the car.
If I back away and the person calms down and the situation resolves itself, then I've done what I came to do. We're telling our officers, you don't have to be so assertive about it. Hitting people over the head with your authority. Robert Haas, Police Commissioner, Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Get out of the car.
If we attack anything in our organization, it's culture. We can write all the policies in the world, we can have all the training in the world, but if you're not changing the culture of your organization, I think we'd be right back here having the same conversation. Many times in law enforcement in my career is when we talk about relationship building, we task that with just a few people in the organization, whether it be the administration or the chief, or the community policing unit, who were tasked with going out and shaking hands and kissing babies, having block parties and things of that nature. Now, don't get me wrong; those are good things. They create a sense of community, they're important. But where I think we missed the boat is the patrol officers every day in their districts, we left them alone. Still go do police work, I'll take care of the relationships. I think that's completely wrong-headed in my estimation. They're the ones, there's more of them, they're working 24 hours a day, they're in those neighborhoods every day and every night. They should be tasked with an intentionality behind building relationships in those communities every single day.
The International Association of Chiefs of Police has standards and guidelines for psychological assessment and evaluation for new officer hires and for fitness for duties and things like that too. And those guidelines include an extensive, meaning lengthy interview, accompanied by a battery, many, psychological tests keyed to predicting the probability for success in law enforcement. However, many evaluations and assessments done in this country fall far short of this standard. Frankly, I've been appalled, folks, of what I see and what I've seen over the years of what passes for a psychological evaluation in many localities. I've seen just recently in a case where I had to do a second opinion, the psychological evaluation consisted of a 5-minute interview and one test that had no validity or reliability in predicting success in law enforcement, and that passed. In some cases, it's not even a psychologist who does it. Not all psychologists are trained to deal with police. I've seen even in physician assessments where they send 5 minutes and they fill out the form and send it off to Michigan Council on Law Enforcement Standards. So this doesn't even meet the minimal standards of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. It's just simply not enough. Simply not enough. The initial screening that should be done on police officers has to be held to a higher standards. And in addition, though, to that initial pre-employment screen that needs to be far more comprehensive than it's often been in many departments, I also recommend an annual yearly monitoring and follow-up. This is rarely being done, but folks, it needs to be done.
We suggest that there are never any guarantees of success in any prosecution, all right? But there is within the authority and the ability of those who prosecute federal cases to make decisions to give it a shot. And ultimately, I think that that is all that citizens can expect. That if you have a case which is so blatant, which is, in the estimation of most decent people, a murder that's been carried out by 8 police officers, that if charges are brought against these officers and the evidence is put before a jury, and a jury, after looking at this video record and after hearing testimony and after looking at evidence, comes back and finds these officers not guilty, no one will find fault with those who made the decision to bring those charges. Right? That all that you can ask is that when it appears that there has been a crime committed, that there is a good faith attempt to prosecute and to hold the officers accountable. And ultimately, you know, the system has to work the way that the system works. Either these officers are going to be found guilty or not guilty.